Hi, my name is Amanda.
And I'm Kristin.
And we are the Exorcisters.
This is going to be a weekly podcast that includes horror movie reviews, paranormal stories, and all things creepy.
So sit back, relax, and let's get creepy. So what's happening? It's happening.
This is so scary and exciting, and oh my god.
We've been planning this podcast for, I feel like, well, it was definitely before my wedding, which was in November, and it's January. So it's been several months.
It feels like way longer than
I
that,
know
almost.
It does. I know. But here we are. So this podcast, like we said in the beginning, is going to be, we're going to talk about horror movie reviews because we have known each other since 2015. So
since 2015. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's been that long.
Going on 4 years, yeah. And we have a really good group of friends, mutual friends, but something that really brought Kristin and I together was horror movies.
Yeah, no one else seemed to like those. So.
Yeah, which is great. They get their rom-coms, and that's great. But I want to see people get really fucked up.
Bloody and decapitated.
Exactly. And also just being scared, which we're going to talk about in a minute.
Being scared is so much fun.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're also going to include some paranormal stories. Just throw them in every now and then.
When we come up with something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's plenty around where both of us grew up. I grew up in rural Texas.
And I grew up in Manitou Springs, which is one of the haunted places they talk about in the world.
Yeah. So we've got some of our own. We'll probably talk about them a little bit today. In a minute, we're going to talk about what got us into horror. But I also just want to mention we're going to focus a lot on horror movie reviews, and I think it's important to know that we are not film critics.
Absolutely not. We're not going to talk about directing and all of that jazz.
I mean, I might mention, like, for example, James Wan, who does The Conjuring and all these cool movies, like, oh, he's doing this, so it's got some hope to it, but I don't know anything other than, ooh, this is a pretty movie, or look at that shot.
That made me scared, but I don't know why it did. It
exactly.
Just did.
The colors are pretty, or they're dark, and but obviously we watch movies so much that we know a good movie from a shitty movie. So
right, yeah.
At least, I mean, we have.
I hope we do at least.
Yeah, we have the same opinions about most movies. I think there have just been a few where I was like, that was awesome. Like, I am all in 100%, like for Hereditary, for example, and I feel like.
Yeah, I liked Hereditary until she was floating through the air, and I'm sorry, that just got a little too much for me. It lost me.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that'll be good. There's two of us, we have different opinions. But since we go to the movies so much and we watch so much horror, I think that our reviews definitely have merit, but just know you're not going to get the cinematography and the direction of the photography. And
no, not good at any of that.
Yeah, so... and then the paranormal stories are just going to be things, like I said, we find from where we grew up. And if you want to send any in at the end of the podcast, I'm going to talk about our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, and then link or put in our email at the end of it, so you can send in those things if you want. But Kristin, what got you into horror movies?
You know, what got me into horror movies was my mom. I grew up the only child of a single parent, and we would have Friday nights where we would be girly and do our nails and make popcorn and chicken nuggets, and the things we would watch, it was not girly though, we would watch horror movies. And
I love that. You get the girly moments with your mom, but also like watch him take a machete and impale this.
You know, that's important bonding right there. The first movie I remember really watching with her that just fascinated me, and I still love it to this day, is The Omen. I know it's kind of old and kind of sometimes, but
it paved the way for a lot of movies.
Yeah, right? What got you into horror movies?
So, it's funny you talk about your mom, because I think so much, at least for the people that I talk to, it's a lot of their parents. So, my dad was really into horror movies and spooky things, and my birthday's the day after Halloween, so
that's perfect.
Yeah, it was always like a, you know, it's your birthday, but it's also Halloween, so we're gonna combine the two. And I was always daddy's girl. I always wanted to be like my dad, so if he was watching a movie I knew I probably shouldn't watch, I would sneak watch it. But then he eventually figured that out, so he was like, okay, well, if you're gonna sneak it anyways, let's watch it together.
It's very
and I
cool
think,
of him.
yeah, I think the first movie that I remember actually affecting me was Signs.
Okay.
I think.
Really?
Yeah. So it just terrified me. I don't know. I think I know I've told you this story before, but after I watched Signs with my dad, he was like, okay, if you're going to watch these movies, you have to be able to sleep on your own. I'm not going to sleep in bed with you or whatever. You can't be scared. And I was like, I'm fine. I was in like 4th grade. And my brother wasn't home. He was at like a sleepover or something, and he's a couple years younger than me, and he had a bunk bed in his room. So after we watched Signs, I made my dad sleep on the bottom, and then I slept on the top with a bunch of water bottles. So if there wasn't...
I forgot about that story.
So,
That's great.
yeah, if there was an alien...
You had him. You can get him right there.
I had the water, and also my dad was on the bottom bunk, so he would get taken first. It was real sweet, real sweet. So his love of horror and scary things, and now watching horror since I lost my dad when I was 18, it still really makes me feel close to him.
Yeah, I bet. Definitely.
So not only do I love the genre, and horror kind of makes me feel alive, like scared. It's like, holy shit, yeah. But it also really makes me feel close to him because that's something we've loved together for so long.
Yeah, I bet. That's awesome. Yeah. Keep him close a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But what keeps me into horror, like I said, is like I love feeling like the adrenaline of being scared. Cheap jump scares, not so much, but just like that actual...
Yeah, absolutely.
Like fear. Yeah. I just love everything about it. I love gory. I love supernatural, slashers, possession, all of it.
I don't know about you, but I'm constantly on that hunt for that movie that actually scares the crap out of me. That's what I want. And it's kind of hard to find sometimes.
Especially now, I think that, you know, we'll talk about this. We are the Exorcisters, so our second episode will be about the Exorcist. There is a reason we are the Exorcisters, but those movies definitely have a place, but it's like since we grew up when Halloween and The Exorcist and The Omen, all those things were already released and had been out for so long, it's kind of like, well, we're kind of desensitized, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's hard as an audience, but I can't imagine as a filmmaker. What do you do that hasn't
already been done?
Yeah.
Right?
I think Hereditary stuck with me so much because it was just so... There was a family grieving, and it was like...
Yeah.
Until it brought in the supernatural aspect at the end, you know, it was just like real, actual, like...
Absolutely.
A living horror.
It was so good. I will agree with you on that. It was a very good
just threw you off at the end there.
Exactly, no.
Yeah. So, speaking of like movies that you search to scare you, so talk about your movie.
My biggest fear movie, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
My biggest fear movie is The Grudge, and I know there's a lot of people out there that think I'm crazy and that movie's not scary, but oh my god, eyes just get to me. And there's so much in it.
I was about to say, if it bothers you to see an eye peering at you, that is the movie.
Oh, between the hair and then under the sheets. Oh my god, I hate that movie, but I love that movie because it scares me so much.
Well, you only have to watch it like once a year, right?
Yeah, I do. I watch it every, October. I watch all my horror movies, and I make sure I watch the scary ones that really get to me.
So this is going to sound kind of cliche, but the scariest movie to me, even though it is pretty cliche and kind of falls in with the masses, is definitely The Exorcist.
Hey, that Exorcist is scary.
Yeah. I have a thing with faces. So you have a thing with eyes, the makeup and the prosthetics and the contacts and everything really just gets me, and I can't get Reagan's face out of my head.
Oh yeah, with her doing that little chittery thing with her
just
hands
all
on the bed.
Of it. Okay, so I can't ever just sleep on my couch because it backs up to dead space and it backs up to the hallway in my house, which is obviously always dark if I'm out there by myself at night. And all my brain just manifests. It doesn't matter. I was so scared one night, but I didn't want to go to bed. I just wanted to watch Netflix. I freaking watched the princess switch. It was like some cheesy Netflix, like Vanessa Hudgens Christmas movie, way out of what I would normally watch. But I was like, I don't think I can watch anything else right now.
Well, you gotta make sure if you're scared, I would watch something weird like that too.
Yeah, so, but I just picture Reagan either like slowly peering over the sofa at me or standing at the end of the hallway doing that like thing she does when she giggles because she just killed the priest. And
I thought that spider walk thing, that's what I would picture.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just glad I don't have stairs in the house. No, also, the gagging thing. I do that when something really gets to me. I'm just like, what? It's just nasty. One of my best friends growing up, she would always watch horror movies with me. My dad would let us, but our moms wouldn't.
No.
So he would just take us. He would take us to the local video store. I live from such a small town, we didn't even have a Blockbuster.
Oh my god.
It was Video and Tan Express.
And
they had videos.
Did they tan?
Yeah, well, they had
in
like...
the same building?
Yeah, they had tanning beds. You would go and you'd tan, and you'd get your candy and your VHS, and you would leave.
Because that's important. You got to make sure once you're tanned, you go back to a
you look
dark room.
Nice and bronze, sitting at home on your couch in rural East Texas. Like, I guess it's not East Texas, but it's east of Dallas, Texas. But my dad, I asked him, like, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen? Because I was, like, all about it. I was like, let's do it. Mm-hmm. And my friend Ashley was with me, and he said The Exorcist. I was like, let's go get it. And so we went and got it. And so Ashley and I were watching this movie, and it was just such, like, a surreal experience because I'd never seen a possession movie ever. And I was brought up in a religious household.
Oh, God, okay.
So I was like, this shit is real. I'm gonna get possessed for watching this. I can't imagine anything more horrifying than not being in control of your own body and looking like that and all the things that the demon did as Reagan and made her do. So it really just stayed with me.
Absolutely. That would be terrifying.
I don't think anything else will stay with me like that. I don't know. We'll see. There have been a few, like, of course I was younger, so it was still affecting me, but The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah. Oh my God, the contortionist stuff in movies. No, it's creepy.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what possession movies are. So it still really stays with me. Even the not as good possession movies, like The Possession, actually, it wasn't even like. I did like the Jewish aspect of it.
That's the one we just watched a couple weekends ago, right?
Yeah, I did like.
Box.
Yeah, I did like that it wasn't like a Catholic view of things because they're all, which is fine. I mean, the rite of exorcism is a Catholic, but it was kind of nice to see it from like a Jewish perspective. But it wasn't a mind-blowing movie, but just about being possessed really fucking gets to me.
Yeah, it was good until they had all the CGI at the end. Honestly,
I agree. But you also not only are into horror movies, but I think you definitely more than me have experienced like
some creepy stuff.
Yeah, so talk about that.
Yeah, I've had some creepy situations in my life. I mean, most recently we had something going on with Amanda's house, but she can talk about that one.
You're gonna have to talk about it more, but yeah, we'll circle back around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even since I was little, there were just things that happened. I remember laying on a couch one time, and I was totally fine. When I fell asleep, I woke up, and someone was standing there staring at me.
Nope, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I would fucking bail.
Yeah, I mean, in that same house, I mean, come to find out later, it was built on top of a...
If you say Indian burial ground, I swear to God, they're all Indian burial grounds.
One of those Prohibition-era speakeasies. It was built on a speakeasy, and some stuff had gone down, so... Even later on, I remember standing in my bedroom and some little girl in a white dress just like took off down the hall straight at me and was jumping up on my bed. And, that stuff has never really creeped me out because it's always been there. I'm just glad it stays there. I don't want to make any more connections with that.
If a girl in a white dress ran down your current hallway and jumped on your bed, you'd be totally fine with that?
I would not be fine with that. I guess I've repressed it a little bit, so that's good.
See, I can't relate. I'm sure I did, but I didn't realize if I was having any paranormal experiences as a child, which is probably good, but it also may have since I never realized it, closed me off, which we'll talk about in a minute with my current house and this past Halloween, but closed me off to that.
Stuff
or
that might be happening
maybe
around
easy.
you.
Maybe I'm easy to prey on because I don't
Because you don't pay
that
attention.
close attention.
Maybe. What about when you were little, though? I remember you told me a story about with your dad. Kind of creeped me out.
So, are you talking about the ghost in my house?
Yeah, the
one
shape that was
Okay.
darker.
Okay.
Oh.
I need to talk to my mom about this, and I can like come back and give a little bit more information because she got more information after we moved out of this house. But the house I grew up in, we again lived 25 minutes east of Dallas, but it was a small town at the time. It's not really anymore, but everyone had land, and where we lived there weren't like, just to kind of paint a picture, there were very few street lights. Everyone had acreage, so it was,
So you're out in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, it didn't like, when I was a kid though, it didn't strike me as creepy. It's just, we had a pool and a trampoline. I was living the dream when I was a kid. So, and I have several friends that can attest to this, and I'll talk about that in a second. So we had a living room, and then we had what we called the den. So the living room was like a formal living room. It had a fireplace, no TV. It was just kind of a sitting area. And then right next to that, we had what we called the den, and that was where we had our TV and our like lounge area, hang
So is
out,
it like
family
a family room versus living room?
Exactly. And then in front of or like attached to the formal living room was the kitchen. And then if you just walked straight from the kitchen to the back of the house, you would go down the hallway where all the bedrooms were.
Okay.
So I know it's kind of hard to describe, but so if you were in my house, and I was always a night owl until I became an adult with like an 8 to 5. So I was always up late on the computer or whatever, watching TV. And you could see, so if all the lights in the house were off, but you were up in the den watching TV, and the TV light was on out of the corner of your eye, and even sometimes if I were to just look straight at it, there would be this figure, and it was clearly a man, and he was tall, and he just walked either from my bedroom or my brother's bedroom, we don't know, from the bedroom down the hallway through the living room and into the kitchen.
No, oh my God, no.
That's all he ever did though. He just, I don't know, like just like kitchen, midnight snack, I don't know. But the weird thing is, my family and we all experienced this separately. It wasn't like something we talked about. It wasn't like, my brother's name is Chad, so it wasn't like Chad and I would be up, like, oh, do you see that? It wasn't something we talked about. We were just like, well, it's dark, and sometimes when you're watching TV, your eyes and your brain can kind of create things, So I just never really thought anything of it until I mentioned it to my family. Like, I mentioned it to my mom just off the cuff one day, and she's like, yeah, and it just walks from here to here.
No.
And that's all it does, and it never walks back.
No, oh my God, no.
It never walks back. And I was like, yeah, that one. And at this point, we've lived in the house for like more than 10 years, and it's just been happening this whole time. And then my brother was like, yeah, seen it, And unfortunately, my dad had passed at that point that we were talking about it. But the kicker was, my best friend Annie, who lived down the street from me, she had been coming over, our entire childhood.
All those 10
spending
years.
the nights, yeah. And so we would sometimes sleep in my bedroom, but sometimes we wanted to watch TV, and I didn't have a TV in my bedroom. So we would like make a little pallet on the floor in the den.
Like pillows and blankets.
Yeah, and just watch TV until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I mentioned to her, like, we were either seniors in high school or freshmen in college or something like that. It was like much, much, much later.
Okay.
We were almost adults. And so I mentioned it to her, and I asked her if she had ever seen it, and she immediately teared up and just started, like, she wasn't crying, like sobbing, but there were just tears streaming down her face, and she just looked like a deer in headlights. And she said, I've seen it. Because she would be up a lot. So when we got into high school, we would still do sleepovers, but I started becoming less of a night owl. But she's always been one. She'll stay up till like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. My dad would go to work, and Annie would
still be up.
Yeah, she'd still be up. And so she's like, I've seen it. Like, you'll go to bed and I'll see it. And I'm like, yep.
Oh my God, I would never stay at your house ever again.
Yeah, and then my friend Brittany, she was one of my best friends in high school too. I mentioned it to her, and she's like, holy shit, yeah, I've seen it. So everyone that was friends with me for a really long time has seen that figure.
No, that's scary.
Yeah, so... But it never scared us. Like, I never felt threatened. Even talking about it now, I'm not like, holy shit, there was a fucking ghost in my house, you know? But the most recent was this. So it's January 2019. This past Halloween.
Yep.
You and my husband, Brad, really freaked me the fuck out.
You freaked us
okay,
out.
All right,
okay.
I'm gonna start with the Ouija board.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't ever do a Ouija board.
Ever.
Just ever.
Just don't buy one. Don't have it in your house.
Okay, I can't agree with you on that. Because clearly. But don't ever use a Ouija board. I don't care what you believe. Just don't do it. Like, that's how all these people in these horror movies get fucked.
Yeah.
Captain Howdy.
Just learn from the horror movies.
Yeah, we considered calling this podcast Captain Howdy's Horror Hour, but we didn't know if enough people would know who Captain Howdy was. But Captain Howdy is the demon that fucked up Reagan, is Pazuzu. Yeah. And that's how Pazuzu happens. So don't do it. But another one of my friends is a collector, and he had a collector's store for a while, and he found this first edition from the early 70s Parker Brothers Ouija board. Now, Ouija is their trademarked name. Talking boards have been around for ever, yeah. But this was a trademarked Parker Brothers Ouija board from the 70s. It's on real wood and smells old. And he posted it on Facebook that he found it, and I was like, bruh, I want that. So he sent it to me. I bought it. He sent it to me.
Because you're crazy.
Well, it's really cool. And so I hadn't really taken it out of the box other than to be like, you guys, look at this. And then I'll put it back in my closet. But for Halloween, I made like a spooky little mantle. You know, I had
it's really cute.
Candles and gravestones and spiders on my wall and stuff like that. And so something possessed me.
Oh my god.
I just was like, oh, if I take the Ouija board out and put it on the mantle, it'll make a really creepy just like addition to my little Halloween mantle setup.
It did do that, yeah.
But also apparently did other stuff.
It did do other stuff.
I'm gonna let you talk about it because, okay, I'll talk about it in a minute after you're done. I'm completely oblivious and fine. Nothing feels weird to me. I just got this old Ouija board as a decoration. But apparently...
some other stuff was going on.
Apparently, because... So, Brad told
Even your husband,
Brad told me that he felt watched when I was at home. And he said as soon as I walked in the door, it stopped. Even if we weren't in the same room. So, if I would go to bed and he would still be up playing PlayStation... he would not feel watched. But if I wasn't at home, he felt like somebody or something was watching him. He said he didn't feel threatened, just watched. And then I told you that one morning.
You told me that at work, and it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck because we'd actually just that weekend watched a horror movie.
Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Which is another face movie that I hate.
Yeah. We were going through watching our scariest movies. She's got The Exorcist and Evil Dead.
Evil Dead remake. I need to throw that in there. And not even because of the story, but again,
the faces.
She peeks under the...
and the tongue. Oh my god. Okay, yeah.
Anyways.
So we were watching horror movies because we're creepy and it's, October and we gotta do that.
We have a schedule.
Yes.
A movie schedule.
Yes.
It's written on a calendar. Anyways.
So I'm laying on her couch and it's a sectional, so I'm laying in the corner and I can see into the kitchen. All the lights are out. We're watching a horror movie, so I'm getting a little creeped out, of course, because we're watching a horror movie in the dark. Right. And I'm pretty sure I see someone in the kitchen, and I'm just telling myself, no, I'm just creeping myself out because it's a movie. There's nothing wrong. No, it's not a person. It's just not. I'm seeing this the whole time we're watching this, and I'm just keep telling myself that it's not it.
And I'm just fucking oblivious.
Literally oblivious. We're just watching this movie.
I go in the kitchen, get water, nothing.
Meanwhile, I'm telling myself I'm seeing this guy standing there in the kitchen. No. That can't be it. We're watching this. I'm creeped out. She tells me this story the next Monday at work. Hey, Brad feels like someone's watching him in the house. And I went white because as soon as someone else said that, I knew I was right.
I saw it in your face too. I was like, what is it? Because you've told me you're really in tune with that, even if you you have a connection with your aunt.
Yeah,
I have
an aunt who died that I never even met. I still feel her presence around when stuff's wrong.
So when you said you were uncomfortable, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was one of those where I wanted to leave your house as soon as possible, but I didn't want to, make a fool out of myself because I'm just creeped out because of a horror movie. It's not a big deal. But then as soon as you said that about Brad, I'm like, okay, so this was real. Someone else is feeling this too. It's not just me creeped out with horror movies. This is happening. Okay. So then we start talking about it. I start freaking you out.
Oh, dude. Okay. Well, okay, so first of all, why don't I feel it?
Exactly.
This is my house. Like, so it's like one of a couple things. The not so scary part is it is someone like maybe my father that has passed on, that is just, it wouldn't surprise me if, and I don't really know how I feel about, relatives being, not to discount, I just have never had those experiences myself, but, I've never felt like my dad's presence or anything like that, and maybe because I'm just more closed off and guarded to that kind of stuff because I didn't experience it as a child, but I've never experienced anything like that, so it wouldn't surprise me if when my dad's energy peaked, it would be in October.
Okay. Yeah.
Around my birthday and the things that we did together was all kind of centered around this spooky time of year. So it wouldn't surprise me. But then on the flip side of that is because I'm so closed off to it, what if it's something that thinks because I have the Ouija board and because I'm not scared because I don't notice it.
Maybe you'll talk to it?
Yeah, maybe I'll just let it out into my life. And so I don't remember. Brad wasn't home. I think it was that Friday night because we didn't have to go to work the next day. Mm-hmm. And I had to be home until 9 or 9:30 by myself, which I love being home alone. Mm-hmm. Love it. I love my alone time. But I was so freaked out that night that I have
because of what I said?
Yeah.
What we said?
Yeah, and knowing that there's something in my house that
you can't feel.
I can't feel it. I can't see it. And so I went to my bedroom, closed the door to the back of the house. It's away from the kitchen, all the way on the opposite end of the house. But I could not. I turned on South Park, which is the zone out to funny, mindless comedy. And I was laying in bed just trying to watch South Park and ignore it. And I had my pug in bed with me. And I literally could not be home alone. I was so scared and paranoid that something was I can't explain it. I was so scared.
I bet.
And
I would not be in the house by myself.
Well, and the thing is with Brad, he doesn't believe in that kind of stuff.
And he doesn't feel it.
Yeah, he doesn't like horror movies. He's not into the paranormal. For him to say it without any, I didn't ask, just totally unprompted.
Just random.
I came home and he's like, I feel watched when you're not here. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So that night I was probably only home alone for, God, I don't know, 45 minutes tops. Mm-hmm. Me and Izzy, the pug, I got her leash. We went to PetSmart. We went into Starbucks and got her a puppuccino. I mean, I literally just got the dog and we bailed for 2.5 hours. And I called Brad when he was on his way home and he was like, oh, I'll be home in 15 minutes. But I was closer to home. I fucking circled the block. I was I am not going in that house.
Yes.
So you helped me. We went to this cute little organic store that also has sage and smudge sticks. And you came over and I put
smudged every room of your house.
Yeah. Before that, though, I had put up the Ouija board. I was like, okay. Which, we have a podcast room in my house. I'm going to put it... I'm just fucking asking for it. I'm going to put it up on the wall in here, I think. But I will put it in...
behind glass.
Yeah. Yes. Behind something where it's not just out where...
Because as soon as you put it back in the box, things started to...
feel normal
and go back to normal again.
That's good. I was just trusting you to tell me if things were normal because I was just so scared because I knew other people felt it and I didn't, and I felt like I was almost under attack, even though there was not a direct attack or anything, and there wasn't things moving or any. I didn't. It's just I can't.
No, I'm glad we saged also, but as soon as you put it back in the box, it felt so much better. The dude wasn't standing in the kitchen anymore. Didn't feel weird.
He's not welcome. Just putting that out into the universe.
No random people welcome.
No. And I almost want to that, which is also kind of scary because if you have a relative that you were really close to that has passed on, they can be used against you. And that's kind of why I felt Brad has had some loss in his life, but not like somebody that would be like you would try desperately to see again or
Right.
talk to again, like I would with my dad. I know better.
Good.
But,
No.
you know, so for these people around me to be noticing that, and for me to be easily targeted, like, you know, if I had heard my dad's voice or saw a manifestation of it, I might have been like, holy shit, it's my dad, you know? So, yeah, I think that's the scariest paranormal experience I've ever had, though, and it wasn't even... Like, I didn't even notice. It's not like I saw anything or felt anything
It's just other people.
Yeah. Well, I felt like invaded.
Yeah,
Get out of my
absolutely.
house. But yeah, we went and through every single room in my house, all the corners, and we smudged everything. I think we're gonna have to do that every couple months, just talking about the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, probably. I'm already getting creeped out again talking about these stories again.
Yeah. Well, you know, we are gonna talk a lot about horror movies, which, you know, that's just talking about a movie. But okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Email me if I'm a dipshit. I feel like you almost can't love horror if you don't buy into, you know, that
stories.
Paranormal experiences can happen, because then they're not as scary.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I think you can enjoy a movie. But like Brad, he's like, I just don't like him. He doesn't believe in him. He doesn't, you know,
Ghost stories freak me out because I've been with ghosts and things like that, and it's just no, I know it's real.
Yeah, and so when you're watching those things on screen, and that's, I think, why it is so much more enjoyable to watch as someone that I can't imagine watching a horror movie and not believing or buying into what they're selling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying like The Nun, fucking terrible movie. Like, I didn't buy into that for a second. But just as like a big picture, like if you don't believe in the paranormal and you don't believe that these things can happen, then I think that would take away from your experience. Tell me if I'm wrong. Like, if you don't believe in paranormal at all and you
love horror
fucking
movies?
love horror movies, hit me up. But I just think it would make them not nearly, except for slashers.
Yeah, slashers.
Everybody can be scared of Michael Myers stabbing you.
Exactly. Or Freddy or Jason coming after you.
Yeah, exactly. Man, when we watched Friday the 13th this past Halloween, it has been so long since I have seen any of the Friday the 13th movies. I totally forgot he wasn't even fucking in them. I was like, where the fuck is the hockey mask? I was like, oh, it's this crazy fucking mother.
Yeah.
Didn't even there. It's really weird. There are
at the very end.
You're right. You're right. It's just interesting because like there are a lot of like classic horror movies that I haven't seen. I don't know.
We're gonna have to change that.
I know. Well, we're gonna have to, because we're gonna have to talk about
Exactly. It's gonna be great. Like Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Oh, I was gonna say Psycho, but we did change that
Yeah,
one for you.
I hadn't seen Psycho, and I feel like a shitty horror fan for saying that. But I've seen a lot of indie horror.
That's true. I haven't seen a lot of those.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the big pictures.
Yeah, which is great. They both have their merit. I just, didn't get around to it. Another movie that my dad loved and he said was up there with Exorcist for him was Silence of the Lambs. And I don't know why. I mean, I love it, but it was really weird.
I just learned that Silence of the Lambs actually came from a book first. I did not know that.
I have it.
I'm going to be reading that.
I have it.
Oh my god.
You can take it home after you finish reading The Exorcist, because I cannot.
Oh, yeah, that book's already creeping me out. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to soldier through for our next podcast. It's going to be in there.
Our boss, we share an office, and our boss walked in, and she shoved The Exorcist book in his face, and she was like, read this.
There is just this scene that, it's so creepy. I still think about it, and I can't walk down the hall by myself. Oh, no.
Well, that's why I couldn't read it, because I'm already so terrified of the movie imagery.
It would destroy you, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could, because you get so into a book, your imagination has to do everything, which is great. But I don't think I could ever read the Exorcist book, because your imagination has to do so much of the work, and I think I would just be I think I would be almost terrified to the point where I was that night.
Yeah. Absolutely. You wouldn't want to be alone.
Leaving my house. Yeah. Because at least driving around, like, Reagan never got anybody in a car.
All right.
So there are things that happen in cars, but
I haven't even gotten to the real hairy parts of the book yet, so we'll see how it goes. But I don't know. I live by myself. This could take a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Amanda and I have decided to do this podcast. We're starting at the beginning of the year. We're starting the year off right. and creepy and creative and all of that. And we're thinking this year that we're going to go with all the original horror movies that really got us into it, like Halloween and Friday the 13th and all that.
And there's stuff to be said for all of those, even after they've been out for so long. I mean,
they're still amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And we will do, like, if there's a really highly anticipated movie coming out this year.
Yeah, we'll definitely
Pet Sematary, It Chapter 2. We'll talk about all of those.
Yes.
See if they're worth it. We'll probably have to see it twice before we talk about it and review it.
Yeah, definitely.
But we will do those. But I think it's hard to talk about horror movies without talking about the originals. So next week, we are the Exorcisters. So we're going to be talking about The Exorcist. And The Exorcist 2. And The Exorcist 3.
And the book.
Which you are reading right now.
And we've even watched the show.
Yeah, Fox did the series if you haven't watched it. First season, we'll get into it, but give it a watch if you have time to binge. And at least watch the first season, because it does tie into the movie, The Exorcist. And then I'm going to talk about the exorcism that The Exorcist is based on. So what the author heard this exorcism story, and he's like, dude, that's going to be a bitchin' book and a bitchin' movie. So I'm going to talk about all that. We'll talk about the kind of horrible things that happened during filming. How they thought it was cursed, and there were deaths of crew members, and how they filmed it, which OSHA would not allow that.
Yeah, definitely not.
Nowadays, which I think is why it's so hard to mirror things done back then.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah,
you're not allowed to anymore.
I mean, it's just amazing. They didn't have the CGI. It was all just hard work and makeup and prosthetics, and the talent is just incredible. So we're going to talk about all that. So you can follow us on all of our social medias. Our Instagram and our Facebook are both the Exorcisters podcast. Exorcisters is EXORCISTERS. Our Twitter is @the_Exorcisters, and our email is theexorcisters@gmail.com. Please feel free to email us if you have paranormal stories of your own that you might want us to talk about, or if you know anything about these movies.
Yeah, any facts would be great. We would love to add them in for you guys.
Absolutely. And it'll help us on our research too if we get some interesting facts, because Google can only there's only so many articles you can read.
That's true.
And so much research you can do, so many YouTube videos you can watch, or if there's a movie you want to hear us talk about,
to review,
please feel free to send us an email. And until next week, stay creepy.